Welcome to the May 23rd edition of the PFF Forecast. We've got a great episode here because we're going to talk a lot about this Julio Jones trade discussion, what it means from a Falcons perspective, from a bet perspective. We've bet, obviously, Matt Ryan to win MVP at some really nice odds. So we'll dive into all of that, talk a little bit about the mechanics of trading for great players on big contracts with draft picks. We're going to get into a couple of season-long player props. We're going to talk a little bit about college football futures. Yes, that's right. You heard this correctly. I'm going to allow like 5 minutes for Eric to wax poetic. We'll talk a little bit about some Heisman futures, and then we've got some recommendations on the back end of that. Let's rock. Before we get started, I got to tell you about a couple of good podcasts. If you like this podcast at the PFF Podcast Network, Ian Hartit's Fantasy Football Podcast. It is beginning to get into fantasy season. It's never too early. If you try and cram, just like for anything, you're going to feel like you know nothing. So start now, slow and steady. By the time your draft, exactly. By the time your draft comes around, you'll be good to go. Ian Hartit's Fantasy Football Podcast. They're short, they're sweet. He had DeAndre Swift on last week, and that was actually just awesome.
I'm so excited for this fall. Last year we didn't have Ian or Andrew in the fold here. Now this fall, a full year of having them. I'm excited for what fantasy is capable.
So much good fantasy content.
This
Ian,
fall.
Kevin Cole, Nathan Yonke, Andrew Erickson, they're all killing it. So go to pff.com or wherever you get your download your podcasts and check that out. I got to commend you. It's 90 degrees outside in Cincinnati, but that did not get in the way of you wearing a seemingly not 18-year-old sweatshirt.
Nice. Yeah, I mean, we are moving houses too, so I left this behind to make sure to
you were ready.
Look okay on Sunday. But yeah, it is really hot outside. It's
little sweat Taylor though.
Emphasis on sweat.
It's warm. I will say this. I'm excited about it. I'm not complaining. It's not that humid yet. And we can do a whole podcast on humidity and its impacts, but we're not going to. But I'll commend you. We talked about this on Wednesday. You did not forget. You committed to it, and I'm
committing to the bit, man. Committing to the bit. Are you now that the weather is heating up? Are you like with the NFL is sort of cooling down? What are your thoughts on that?
Well, it's interesting. We were talking about this as we were prepping for the show, and it's like, there's not a ton from an NFL perspective, but you've got NBA playoffs, so I'm betting on that. Not nearly the same, limit size that I would for NFL bets where I feel more confident. But one of the cool things about the NBA and about golf, and I've got Mickelson at 3-1. I'm hoping to come back and bet Koepka at some point, but I don't know if that's going to happen, is I feel like with NBA games, you get this really great sense of where teams are at based on like whether they're making threes or not, and you're able to bet them live fairly well. And I know this is like, it sounds super rudimentary, but look at the Celtics-Nets game. I told you, I was like, I bet the Celtics +8. They come out, they're making threes, and the Nets can't make anything. And I like tripled my bet on Nets -2.5 when it got down to 2.5.
Yeah, and that's. I actually got burned on that in a Liberty Sky game. And Liberty made every.
You have to tell people what sport that is.
WNBA. The Liberty made literally every single three in the first half, and so I bet the Sky. And then just what happened is both teams couldn't hit the broadside of a barn in the second half, so then they stayed. Both teams, right? So one team mean reverted, and the other team kept going in the wrong direction. So that was interesting. But yeah, you're right. I mean, when the game is sort of flowing that way, you do get a fair amount of leverage from just regression to the mean that you might not get in the NFL, because the NFL is less free flowing. There are fewer possessions. College football, you might get a better idea, when an Alabama is down 14-0, that they'll come back and win and possibly even cover the spread. But, in the NFL, the teams are so close together that early noise often affects the result of the game way more than in a sport like basketball, which has hundreds of possessions.
Yeah, what I'm thinking now about the NFL, and like if you were sort of putting together a thesis for how you would bet things live, because to me 3-point shooting, like in the NBA, it's such a huge thing. And when Marcus Smart hits a 3-pointer, you go, oh, that's a false positive, right?
Yeah, for sure.
What to you is that in the NFL?
I mean, like a pick six is probably one where like if a team throws so there was that Seattle New England game last year where Seattle's 5-point favorites on pre-flop, and they throw a pick six right through Greg Olson's hand in the first play of the game or something, and they're down 7-0. They're the better team. That should be a spot where you want to go and bet live. But it is really hard. I mean, I would say, another way to also think about it is if you have long drives that end in turnovers, you can get a pretty good you can get a pretty good price on the total. Like if you want to go over, like if a game's 0-0 at the first quarter, and it's because I think the game that I'm thinking of most acutely was Buffalo, San Francisco played in Arizona last year, where the total was like 50, let's say. And in the first quarter, Buffalo drove all the way inside the 5 and turned it over. San Francisco drove the ball all the way inside the 5 and turned it over. And then Buffalo, I think, did the exact same thing. And you're like, okay, well, this game doesn't have a high score right away, but it has it's not like the defense they're dominating, it's just noise. Yep. So like anything where you can be like, okay, the noise has really affected everything here. That's, I think, where you want to gravitate towards when you're trying to make live bets.
Can I tell you my favorite one? It's drops. I love when there's a team with a good offense fundamentally. The Chiefs have done this a couple of times. Actually, in the Houston game a couple of years ago in the playoffs. And
Demarcus Robinson on the first 3 drives of the game. Yeah, that was
and I think Travis Kelce dropped one too. But we know, drops are we know from game to game, season to season, are such an unstable thing. And in game, it's I think drops are viewed as more of a stable characteristic of a team than they should be.
Yeah.
Whereas, even a pick six, it's something to monitor, like how much does the line actually move. Okay, that was a good discussion. We're going to get into the main topic of this podcast, which is this Julio Jones trade rumor. So let's kind of set the table here. As far as you understand it, because you could probably get a couple different angles here. As far as you understand it, what is the catalyst from the Falcons standpoint, or is it maybe the Julio Jones camp pushing for it? Who's the catalyst and why?
I think it's mostly that like the Falcons don't really have and I don't know the specifics of what happens to their cap when they get a trade. But let's say let me just list off a few things. So dead money if cut pre-June 1 on the Falcons roster. Mm-hmm. Matt Ryan, $65 million. Julio Jones, $40 million. Grady Jarrett, $19 million. Jake Matthews, $30 million. Dante Fowler, $15 million. Deion Jones, $29 million. Chris Lindstrom's a first-round pick, but $8 million. And then Calvin Ridley, $13 million. AJ Terrell. So we're now getting to their draft picks, which you can't cut anyway, right? So Matt Ryan would cost the Falcons $38 million in cap if they were to cut him. Julio is $17.5 pre-June 1. Jake Matthews 18, Dante Fowler a little under 5, Deion Jones a little under 21. They don't have any flexibility. There was the thing that came out and said, the reason they extended Matt Ryan was because if they kept him on the like a $40 million number this year, they would have had to cut Deion Jones or something like they were in a really hard place where extending Matt Ryan was really the only freedom that they had. I think the Julio thing, if it's coming from the Falcons camp, is to try to give them some flexibility. It's trying to give them some flexibility moving forward to do things like sign Calvin Ridley to an extension, so on and so forth. To me, that's like the only reason because he is like, he's not like declining from an efficiency standpoint, but he's always been a player we've joked about who's like always nicked up. Like he never plays more than
catches a pass on first down. He's out for third down.
Yeah, exactly. So like he hasn't played over 900 snaps in a long time. Like stuff like that. From the rest of the league's perspective, you really have to ask yourself a question, because I've asked a few teams, what do you think about Julio? And I think that the really hard part about trading for Julio right now is a lot of teams, because of the way the cap is structured, have paid out more cash than you and I would expect. Mm-hmm. So when you take like a signing bonus, or we take a base salary and make it a signing bonus and prorate it out, you have to pay that. So your accounting means you don't have to pay, all but a fourth of it now, but you actually have to pay that out. So like a team that takes on Julio Jones is going to have to take on a financial commitment to a player, as well as a draft pick commitment to a player, in a year where revenues are down, but payments are like about the same, if not up. So it is a tough nut to crack. And I think that there are a lot of teams that like the idea of Julio Jones more than they would actually like the specifics of acquiring what has been one of the best football players drafted since 2011, or 2010. I'm sorry, but it's not as simple as I think people want to make it out to be. It's not just giving up draft picks.
You mentioned his availability. 2016, 479 receiving snaps. 2017, 490. 2018, 605. 2019, 610. And last year, only 310. Now, his PFF grade has been over 90 in 4 of those 5 years. Right. However, last year, it dipped to 85. So I think it's important to note where teams might be thinking about Julio Jones and going, look, I don't want to be the team that goes out and picks him up right as he's starting to decline. Recency bias is so massive. And I think that's why, because you look at this and you go, why would you try and trade him after the draft? Like, wouldn't you want to trade him before the draft? And so it's really weird to me that they're making this move now, because you'd go, okay, well, if you're trying to get rid of Julio Jones, wouldn't you be doing it before the draft? And wouldn't you also then be thinking about drafting a quarterback?
Right. I mean, that's the whole part of this that doesn't make a lot of sense. I mean, if you're Atlanta and you take Kyle Pitts, you are trying to win in 2021. You see blood in the water with Carolina. Mm-hmm. You see blood in the water with New Orleans. You have a schedule that is hard in the sense that 10 of their games are road games, but easy in a who the opponents are sense. Mm-hmm. You have Matt Ryan, who I think has maybe a few good years left in him, and you have a head coach that's been a talent maximizer on the offensive side of the ball, and you have a defense that I just looked at it. I mean, it's not going to be very good, but like there have been defenses with worse personnel that have done a good job. Mm-hmm. And you have Dean Pease, who's a defensive coordinator, who's done a fabulous job wherever he's gone. So the reason to draft Kyle Pitts, I think all of us wouldn't agree with it in the sense that you should have traded down, you should have taken a quarterback. But if none of those things were tenable for you as a team, Kyle Pitts was a good draft pick. And now you have an opportunity to compete. Getting rid of Julio Jones curbs that substantially, because he is a really good football player. And I think at this stage in his career, if he was the number 2 wide receiver on this team with a tight end like Pitts and a kind of dual threat running back and Mike, Thunder Quads Davis, like that's a good offense. I think if you take him out of the fold, what do you do at the number 2 receiver spot? Because now you go from having a super advantage in that position to now in the NFL, like if you have less than 2 great weapons, you have a weakness there.
So 100%. Look, here's the tough thing about it. Because of what you just spoke about, because of what I just spoke about in terms of his ability to be on the field, his availability, and I'll make this even more acute. He is, over the past 5 seasons, been worth basically exactly the same number of wins above replacement as DeAndre Hopkins has. DeAndre Hopkins has played almost 1,000 more, about 800 more snaps. He's run 800 more routes than Julio Jones has. That's the type of efficiency that we're talking about. So if you take that efficiency off the Falcons, with what you bring in, given the contract, given the fact that what it says about a team when you're trading away a player like that, what you think about the player, because it sends a message like, hey, I'm trading this. Hey, Eric, do you want this thing that I have that I don't need anymore? I'm immediately telling you that it's not as worthwhile to me as you might have implied. And that combination of things means no matter what, the Falcons will not get for this next season and probably the season after anything commensurate with the value of Julio Jones in a trade.
Yeah, well, especially given that the time value of future draft picks is not that, like, especially to them. Like, to us, a draft pick now is not quite worth an entire, like, round worse, but, like, that's how the NFL's pricing it. But, like, after the draft, you're getting, like, the Chiefs aren't going to trade for Julio, but we had that graphic up which said it was a second-round pick, a sixth-round pick, and a second. It's like, well, those are all, like, in your mind, discount all those by a round because, like,
they're not happening this year.
They're not happening this year. They're not helping your team this year.
And they're not helping your team next year either. Rookies don't help that much. Like, that's such a
especially
move for
when
the
you're
future.
not committed to taking a quarterback. The only way that those picks would help you, especially because none of them are first rounders, is if you use them to go up and get a quarterback, which you had an opportunity to do at 4 in Justin Fields already. Mm-hmm. And so, to me, it's just not congruent. And my take has thus far been, and I think I tweeted this out, but I've also sort of talked to some people. I think Aaron Rodgers is less than a 50% chance of being traded. I think he has a bigger chance to be traded than Julio Jones. Wow. I just don't think it makes sense for the Falcons to do it. And I don't think when Julio realizes what he's going to be able to fetch in a trade and a contract, I think he'll see that it's better for him to stay and win some football games in Atlanta.
Let me ask you this then. Okay,
although we want that to happen too. Like, that's also clouding my judgment maybe a little bit.
So I want to get into that in a second, but let's look at what the odds are right now. So there's a couple of different places you can look. I'm going to start with DraftKings, which I don't see it up there right now, but they had the Falcons as a favorite for him to return at -150. And then had a bunch of other teams at about plus 500, 5-1 or more. They had the Colts and the Chargers 5-1, the Ravens 7-1, along with the Patriots. Niners 8-1 with the Titans, Packers 10-1, Saints then 25, Browns 33, Chiefs 33, Raiders 33, Dolphins 33, Jets. I mean, they just don't even know. Yeah. Another place that you could look is betonline.ag, and this was odds if traded. This was on the 21st of May. Ravens plus 275, Niners 3-1, Patriots plus 450, Chargers and Titans 6-1, Colts 7-1, Packers 9-1, Eagles 10-1, Giants, Cowboys, and Bills about 14-1. The Cowboys are 16-1. What do you make of that, if anything? Like, is there anything there that sticks out to you and you go, wow, I actually think this is a value? Would it be betting the Falcons at -150 for him to stay there? What's your take there?
Yeah, I think with all those, the hold is so humongous that, and here was another thing, as somebody who made a significant amount on Brady to the Bucks,
yeah. If
you bet this, you have to wait till week 1 to till it cashes. So, like, that coupled with the hold, I'm probably out on all of those. Like, I think the Falcons at -150 might be something to lay, but you're sweating that out all the way through training camp. Like, if something like were to happen, like Khalil Mack didn't get traded until a week before Chicago's game against Green Bay in 2018. So it's good to look and see. Like, I like all these markets now because they help us steady, right? Like, when a fan comes to you and is like, hey, this team's going to be awesome, you're like, well, why is their win total 7? Mm-hmm. Like, it's important, but I don't think any of these offer value, and it's not enough of, like, if you get inside information, what's the limit on it? Like $100,
yeah.
So it's tough.
Right, you're not getting down a lot of money. Okay, so then there were kind of two offshoots of this. The first is, well, then obviously you think about the ramifications of other bets. Certainly a win total bet, right? So I think we bet the Falcons at over 7. We've also bet them at over 7.5. Without Julio Jones, they'd trade him away, in all likelihood get nothing back for him. How do you feel about, first off, the bets that we made already, and then are there any other bets maybe that are derivative, not specifically Jones getting traded, but other futures markets that would then be impacted that you would like?
No. Ben Brown and I on the PFF Daily Betting Podcast gave out New Orleans Saints under 9 was our pick this week.
Right. That's the tough thing. Like, the Saints are a fade, And I mean, you can actually go bet whether who the Saints are gonna play at quarterback week 1, which tells you a lot about the Saints in general. That's the tough thing, man. You look at this and you go, okay, well, the Panthers, the Saints, the Bucks. I'm not gonna bet the Bucks at what is it, minus 450 or whatever to win the division. Like, I'm not gonna do that. So really, you're kind of sitting there and you're going, man, I just don't know how I feel about this 7.5. Like, are you trying to net that out? Or I guess my take on it would be this. Would I feel worse about it? Yes, absolutely. But I'll say this about the Falcons. They have Calvin Ridley.
Yeah.
They have Kyle Pitts. They have Arthur Smith. And I think Matt Ryan is being shat on in this situation, and undeservedly so. I still like over 7.
I mean, Arthur Smith made Corey Davis into a player last year.
He made Ryan Tannehill look like Dan Marino.
He got Khalif Raymond over the top a bunch of times. So here's okay. So let's think about it. So the last 3 years,
I'm not worried.
Well, I'll say this just as much. We have the Falcons at about 9 wins. So Julio Jones the last 3 seasons has been worth 0.79, 0.85, and last season abbreviated 0.39 wins above replacement. Yep. So let's say he's worth a half a win. Just with all of that new team, it's hard to acclimate to a new team. Let's say he's worth half a win to the Atlanta Falcons this next season because Pitts is going to eat into some of the targets, blah, blah, blah. So if you have the Falcons handicapped at 8.5, 9 wins, this is still a smash. And when you look at, Pinnacle, for example, Pinnacle is exactly, so when you look at the Falcons, they're still 7.5 minus 142. There are some places I bet even with this news, I found an out that had 7.5 minus 130. I've got you saw minus 115. Like, I'm not worried until I start to see this number go down. Like, and minus 142, I mean, again, you're looking and saying, okay, this team has to be an under 500 team by 1 game. And you can still win the bet, right? We're not talking about the Falcons making the playoffs. We're talking about the Falcons like having a so-so season. It does hurt them. Yeah, it does hurt them. But how much is Arthur Smith worth? How much is Matt Ryan rejuvenation worth? How much is offensive line acclimation and ascension worth? And how much is defensive and turnover regression worth? It's worth a lot more than Julio Jones, as much as I like Julio, and he's been one of the best players in the NFL since he entered the league.
Okay, now I want to flip to what's best for Julio. And I've been going back and forth on this, and I kind of want to – I have a sort of top 5 here in terms of where I think – because here's the interesting thing that's come out about this. First it was the Falcons are interested in trading Julio Jones. Now we've seen Julio Jones in Dallas wearing a Cowboys jersey or sweatshirt. We've seen him working out with Derrick Henry. I don't know exactly where it was, but working out with Derrick Henry. And we've also heard reported that he wants to go play with Cam Newton in New England because, quote, Matt Ryan's deep ball is falling off. Now, Matt Ryan's arm strength may be up for debate, but his accuracy is not. And he was, middle of the pack accurate in terms of deep ball, accurate throw rate. Cam Newton was like 31st. Yeah. So, a lot of issues with that statement. I'm going to let you go first, though. Do you think Julio actually wants to get out of Atlanta? Do you think that's best for him?
No, and maybe. Here are some teams that I like, and I know you'll. I don't know if we'll overlap here. Actually, here are some sneaky teams that Julio could do really well for: the Los Angeles Chargers, the New York Jets. Those 2 teams to me have what Julio's looking for, which is enough effective cap space to pay for him. An offense that has targets that they could pump. Like the Chargers last year, who was the Chargers' second receiver? It's Mike Williams, and he was garbage last year. Like he was hurt and banged up as he normally always is. And then what does Justin Herbert have? He has one of the best deep balls in all of football. Honestly, this would take my Chargers hate / Herbert fadeism off the table a little bit. Yeah. I would buy in here. For the Jets just have cap space. I think they're going to have a great culture. And they also have a quarterback who can throw the ball a mile. And if you put Corey Davis, that would go from a receiving core where you're like, maybe to like, okay, I'm ready for this one. Like Denzel Mims, Corey Davis and Julio Jones. Okay, I could go with that.
I'm just disappointed. I like all of those. Those are great, by the way. The Chargers is my favorite one, and the Chargers were in my top 5. I'm going to start with a team.
No, I tried to pick ones I didn't think you'd pick, but I know that like.
Well, the Chargers are one of the favorites to grab it. But I'm trying to think about this from Julio Jones' perspective. I'm Julio Jones' agent. Where am I telling him to go? Okay, now, it's a bummer that the Rams don't have any draft picks because I guarantee you the Rams are like sitting there in
the
their
Jets have one for the Jamal Adams trade, by the way. I don't think they should use a first.
No.
But they will, but it hurts less to give up a second when you have 2 firsts.
Exactly. And that was part of my thought process on what teams could actually make the move. But I guarantee you the Rams are sitting in their Malibu house being like, shit, is there a way that we can bring Julio Jones in? So, but I don't think that's...
Can they trade the 2031 first rounder for Julio?
What the hell is going on? So I think that one's a real long shot. I'm going to start with team number 5 on my list. And team number 5 on my list is... so I don't have the Patriots on there. I actually don't even have the Titans on there. Team number 5 on my list is the Baltimore Ravens. And I think the reason they're number 5 is that Lamar Jackson's accuracy isn't fantastic, but he would have an opportunity to have a couple of young receivers around him, much like he does in Atlanta, have a creative offensive scheme, and have an opportunity to win a Super Bowl. And so I think from his standpoint, that's got to be a real key there. All right, team number 4 for me is the Miami Dolphins. Now, Tua does not have nearly as good of an arm as some of the guys that you mentioned. However, they also have Will Fuller. They just drafted Jalen Waddle. He would have an opportunity to not have to be like the number one guy all the time.
Yeah.
They would be dynamic. And
Dolphins under $1 million in effective cap space.
Yep.
About 8.8 in actual cap space. Tougher scene for them, I think. But yeah.
Yes. Now, I'm cheating here at number 3 because what I've done is I've packaged 2 teams together in a tie at third. And that is the Las Vegas Raiders and the San Francisco 49ers. Both great spots for him for different reasons. If he goes to the Niners, first off, Jimmy G would be dancing in the streets because he would actually have a chance maybe to look really good for a couple of weeks. But they would, in my opinion, then really assert themselves as the best team in that division. And he would potentially have...
Wait a second. You're telling me that the Rams, having traded their future for the next 5 years, haven't even assured themselves the top spot in the division?
Yeah, it's weird.
Are they going to write an athletic article on it?
They might. They might. You could subscribe for $1. But it would be a tremendous opportunity for him to relink with Kyle Shanahan. He either gets Jimmy G, who's going to be accurate, or he gets Trey Lance, who's got a cannon. The Raiders are super interesting to me. Here's why. Derek Carr is good.
Yeah.
He's accurate. And he doesn't throw a ton of deep balls, but I guarantee you he would with Julio. Yeah. It gives Julio the best chance not to win a Super Bowl, which is what the Niners would give him, but gives him the best chance to be like dominant.
On the Vegas Strip too, like all the time. My issue with Derek Carr, I got to say, when's the last alpha wide receiver that wanted to play for Derek Carr? Like Antonio Brown lasted 3 weeks in that place. Like Derek Carr feels to me like a guy who, I hate to say this, but he's like Kirk Cousins, where if they start going pear-shaped for 3 drives, stud wide receivers come off the field and yell at him, and it's just curls up. I feel like he's in a perfect groove right now to be Derek Carr, which is a bunch of kind of beta wide receivers and a really good tight end and no expectations to win football games. That's the perfect situation for Derek Carr. If you put Julio Jones out there, it's it might gobble him up. But Julio hasn't had the reputation of being a TO or something like that.
But let me tell you this: the Raiders should. Okay, they're obviously have got fans coming now. This is a perfectly Raiders move.
Yeah. Of course,
right?
Yeah.
It's such a Raiders move. The fact that they're 33-1, in my opinion, if I was going to bet one team, that would be the team I would bet.
Yeah.
All right. Number 2 for me is the team that you mentioned, the Los Angeles Chargers. Perfect opportunity for him. I mean, great opportunity. You've got Keenan Allen on the other side. You've got a young quarterback with a cannon. You've got a new coach there who, by all accounts, everyone loves. Great situation for him. You moved to LA. Fantastic. But the best move for Julio Jones is Atlanta. It has to be Atlanta. And the reason to me that it has to be Atlanta is, like, Julio Jones has battled through so much bad luck in Atlanta. And for the first time in a long time, I feel like they've made a head coaching hire that makes sense. They've got young players around him that are really good. And say what you want about Matt Ryan's deep ball, but I feel like you've got to get on the same page with Matt Ryan and be like, look, man, we've battled through a lot of shit. Let's go out the right way.
Me and Blake.
Through the fire.
Through the fire.
Like, and I'm not saying this just because I bet the Falcons. That's where Julio is, like, Atlanta. Man.
Yeah.
Like, and
I think Atlanta fans,
they love
him,
Jones.
and they rightfully should. He's a fantastic player. Yes, I'm in agreement there that, like, that's probably his best spot. We also just don't know. Like, we had, Kyle Shanahan for a year, which that offense was an absolute cheat, right? And then you go with Sarkisian, who, like, I think in 18 was very good. You look at Julio's 18 numbers, and they were fantastic aside from the touchdowns. Then you go to Cutter, who, like, I'll just say this, was awful. Like, he was not good for the 2 seasons there. They should have kept Sarkisian for that was the move. And now, like, we're judging the Falcons based on, a Raheem Morris defense, Dan Quinn, and Dirk Cutter. And, like, that's not the case. It is Arthur Smith and Dean Pease, 2 of the great coordinators in the NFL for quite some time. Like, I think, again, I'm going to be bullish on the Falcons until they hit the under, because, like, it's just, to me, I think that there's too many things going in the right direction. Now, again, our friend Josh Hermsmeyer tweeted out the whole, like, their process of, preferring to extend Matt Ryan instead of cutting Deion Jones. Like, they're not perfect, but the hard part about hard part about the Falcons, and this comes all the way back to, like, we talk about COVID and stuff like that, where it's like, you, for reasons not of your control, Terry Fontenot, Arthur Smith, reasons not in your control, every single decision you make about this roster is going to have negatives, because you were not given a great salary cap situation, and you were not given a winner right away. So if you would have traded, or you would have, like, kept Matt Ryan and got rid of Deion Jones, you would have had a shitty defense. If you extend Matt Ryan how you do, then you're less likely to take Justin Fields. Don't compound if you've assumed that you've taken the path with the least amount of bad things happening, which I think they could have, don't compound it by making a bad decision to try to make, like, you're not going to have a perfect run here at the beginning. Like, you're picking up after somebody else. So continue to make logical steps in the right direction. And the Julio Jones trade would not be a logical step in the direction that they've taken. Like, I don't think...
1,000. We are in 1,000% agreement. There's no way. There's no way the Falcons can win a Julio Jones trade.
I don't see it.
I don't believe so.
Yeah.
Okay. Let me give you some. In my dreams, these would be the teams that he would go to. The Seahawks. How cool would that be?
It would be. The Seahawks lack a wide receiver like Julio Jones.
It would be awesome. I mean, it would be so cool to have him and DK.
Are Seahawks fans going to get after me about the Tyler Lockett thing after we prove that he's the first half of the year receiver? You don't, like, they don't have a receiver like Julio Jones.
No, it'd be awesome. The next one that I think would be really cool is the Dallas Cowboys. And I was thinking about this.
You'd almost have to send Gallup back in a trade or something. Like, that's crowded, but yes, it would be great.
I think you would send Gallup.
Him or, I mean, not Cooper. Cooper has too much money. Not Lamb. Lamb's too highly regarded. So you'd send back. They'd get Zeke over there. Send Zeke to the Falcons.
Can you imagine? And then the last one, I have 2 with young quarterbacks. The Bears. How fun would that be? Justin Fields.
By the way, people
Allen
have been
Robinson.
getting after us in the comment. We didn't even read the comments last week, as many as we could have. But there were comments that said essentially, like, does Justin Fields have, like, pictures of us somewhere, like because we're so positive about him.
Yes.
No, he's actually just really good at freaking quarterback, and was taken 11th overall.
Good football player.
Yeah.
Also, I've sent him nudes.
Yeah.
Yeah, totally.
He's got him.
The other one is the Arizona Cardinals with DeAndre Hopkins.
That would be a waste of talent.
It would suck because I'm not sure that they would be as creative as they should be, but it would be cool because DeAndre Hopkins and Julio Jones would be maybe not that were not in their prime anymore. If they were in their prime, be I think the best wide receiver duo. Be up there with like Moss and Carter. What are some other really
Harrison
really good
Wayne?
Yeah.
Isaac Bruce, Torrey Holt. I'm on the Isaac Bruce. I've been watching Isaac Bruce highlights.
Jerry Rice and literally anyone else.
John Taylor. Yeah. Jerry Rice and Terrell Owens.
Yes.
The Cardinals would be like okay, Cliff, you're fired if you can't make this work.
Figured out. Okay, let's move on from the Julio Jones stuff. I don't think there's anything else to it. Oh, actually, let me ask you this: how would you feel about the Matt Ryan MVP futures? Because we have a little. Did we get him at 50 and 75 to 1? I can't remember.
75 to 1 is where I got him when we were in Vegas. 50, I think, is still somewhat available. 33 to 1 is where it is, I believe, on DraftKings. I mean, I would still bet 75 to 1. I would not bet anything south of 50 to 1 if he didn't have Julio. And the thing about it though is, man, Matt Ryan is a former MVP. Mm-hmm. Again, like I think Arthur Smith. The weird thing is, obviously, the Falcons would take a step back with Julio, but I don't think Arthur Smith needs Julio to still be successful this year. It's weird. Like I don't know.
I agree.
At least be successful above what the market expects.
So this is what I was going to say: is that if Matt Ryan doesn't have Julio Jones and they perform really well, it'll be seen as more of Matt Ryan's fault, or because of Matt Ryan. And so I actually still like. Now I'm not betting him 33 to 1. If you can get like 50 to 1, I'm still there. Let's take a look at the MVP race right now. Mahomes 450, Rodgers 9 to 1, Josh Allen 11 to 1, Tom Brady 15 to 1, Stafford also 15 to 1. Hilarious. Lamar Jackson 16, along with Russell Wilson. Dak Prescott is 17 to 1. Herbert and Kyler Murray are 20 to 1. Baker, Matt Ryan 33. Ryan Tannehill, Carson Wentz are 40. Burrow, Cousins, Derrick Henry, Jalen Hurts, Christian McCaffrey, and Deshaun Watson are 50 to 1.
By the way, can we pause at how hilarious it is at who has like some of these clusters are absurd.
Comedic.
Like the people who have the same MVP odds as Jalen Hurts, who plays for a team that is going to win 4 games this year.
It's amazing.
It's absolutely amazing. Okay, the most absurd part about this entire group is that Patrick Mahomes has better odds to win the MVP than his team does to win the Super Bowl. That is amazing, and probably I'm not saying it's like
I think it's fair.
Like
I think it's fair.
Yeah,
dude, Patrick Mahomes is going to go scorched earth on
But think about this. So Kirk Cousins, who I'm not the biggest fan of, should not have the same MVP odds as fucking Jalen Hurts.
Yeah, it's absurd.
That's absurd. Kirk Cousins is like a really good quarterback whose team's actually going to win. Like some games, not fucking 4 games like the Philadelphia Eagles.
So
and then
ridiculous.
Joe Burrow at 51. If Burrow shows, dude, I got this. Somebody wrote an article on one of these like LSU blogs about that conversation we had about Trevor Lawrence and Joe Burrow, where I said I'd rather take Trevor Lawrence for, I think, obvious reasons. And they wrote, I mean, this thing, I got an Instagram post tagging me in it.
Nice.
And I messaged back. I wrote in the Instagram message, thanks for your completely reasonable take with no bias. I was just like,
you know what sucks is that they didn't notice that I chose Burrow and give me a little shine. They decided to shit on you.
Yeah.
I was looking for some LSU fans.
Think about this. Trevor Lawrence has been the number 1 overall pick long before Joe Burrow was even good. That's fair. Like, this is ridiculous. So if Burrow shows any like, people love Joe Burrow.
Yep.
If the Bengals win 11 games this year, Burrow is top 3.
So I have another market I want to talk about. Right now, though, you have to bet on one player at certain odds to win MVP. Who is it? Because I have one.
Russell Wilson at 16 to 1. Okay. That team is, if they win this year, let's say they win the division again, that it will be a bigger surprise, and I think Wilson will be more of a player in the game.
Okay. I find it absolutely comedic to the point of laughter. that Tom Brady and Matt Stafford have the same fucking odds to win MVP? Are you fucking
I wish I
with
could
me?
bet the no on Stafford.
What the fuck?
Like, I don't.
Tom Brady.
Yeah.
Okay, Tom Brady played the last half of the season with a torn knee, and was absolutely incredible. Most wins above replacement of any player in the NFL. The only player that graded higher than him was Aaron Rodgers. And he was figuring out how to call the plays, supposedly. All his players are back. Their division sucks.
Stafford has exactly two grades in his career over 80 as a passer in the PFF system.
Well, right. It was all the Lions' fault. Their run game couldn't get it together.
Yeah.
My point stands. If I have to bet one guy right now, it's Tom Brady.
How are you going to
15-1.
blame Joik Bell for how bad Stafford? Stafford has been look. I think Stafford's extremely talented. I commend him for taking the Lions from being awful to being merely frustratingly bad. But here's my issue with. He has 1, 2, 3, 4, including the last 2 years, over 7.5 yards per. We're not talking about a guy I don't get it. What has he done?
You're trying to ruin my Tom Brady MVP 15-1 bet with this Matt Stafford hatred, which I don't look. I understand where it comes from. I think it's patently absurd.
That's where these markets become real, is when I can bet the other side of this.
Right.
When I can lay minus 1,600 on Stafford not to win the MVP.
Should we just start a sportsbook that does that?
Free money, yes. But I
like that.
Explain to me, this guy has done nothing. He's gotten coaches fired his whole career. Jim Schwartz,
it's not his fault.
Jim Schwartz, he got fired. The guy before Jim Bob Cooter, he got fired.
Not blame-
Jim Bob Cooter, he got fired.
So
Darrell Bevel, he got fired.
Let me make something clear before you get the whole city.
Jim Caldwell, he got fired.
All
Jim Caldwell
15 Los
fired.
Angeles Rams fans are going to be really mad at you, okay? I'm going to try and help you out here. It's not Matt Stafford's fault that he's 15-1 to win MVP, okay? It's everyone else out there jizzing themselves about Matt Stafford in Los Angeles with the Rams, whose fault it is that he's 15-1. It ain't Matt Stafford's fault.
Yeah, it's not. I shouldn't be going after him so much.
So stop. Calm down and focus on Tom Brady at 15-1 for MVP. The next market.
I do think, by the way, the Bucs this year might end up being like Kansas City was last year, where they just blaze through everything.
Where their tackles die in the Super Bowl and they lose.
Maybe they have noise that happens in the wrong order, right? The 19 Chiefs had all their injuries at the beginning of the year and were healthy at the end. And it was opposite. Whereas Tampa, who's in the if let's say the Packers trade Aaron Rodgers, who in the NFC is competing with Tampa Bay? No one.
The NFC is not good.
Yeah, there might be a team like Pittsburgh was last year that make the Chiefs try for the first 12 weeks to make sure they get their bye. How to lose a bye in 10 days. But
great movie.
Great movie. What was it, At Buffalo? but Tampa, as you said, bring everybody back. I think there's a little bit of a risk to that because you don't have as many players who are hungry. Seren brought this up about Kansas City, where
Stop
it's
it.
But at the same time, you look at the NFC.
There's many players that are hungry. Now we're talking about their food intake.
No, but what I mean
you met Tom Brady? You know how many fucking Super Bowl rings he has?
Yeah, that's true.
Dude is always hungry for an almond avocado shake.
I concede my case.
Let me ask you about this because you mentioned Joe Burrow. Joe Burrow's 6-1 to win Comeback Player of the Year. This is on DraftKings Sportsbook. Dak Prescott is plus 175. Saquon Barkley and Joe Burrow and Christian McCaffrey are 6-1. Nick Bosa 7-1. Carson Wentz is 9-1.
Can I bet the other side of Carson Wentz?
Right. Sam Darnold 16-1. So is Derwin James. So is Von Miller. I'm not going to get into any of those. I think that
Tim Tebow 33-1, by the way.
There are Tebow odds out there. It's over 12.5 yards.
He has over 2.5 touchdowns.
No, over half a touchdown.
If he plays week 1.
Over half a touchdown.
Okay, I saw 2.5 if he plays week 1.
2.5?
If he plays week 1.
Where is this? This is absurd.
It's I think that's a humongous push because I don't think he's going to make. I've gone back and forth. I said he would make the team on one podcast. I'm a little bit nervous now about the making the team odds.
If he makes the team, he's getting a touchdown.
He's getting.
This is a cinch.
Eric Fisher had a touchdown last year. Tim Tebow, who was looking like Eric Fisher by the day.
Here's the thing. If he sucks so badly that Urban Meyer can't put him on the team, and does that bet?
The 2.5, I think, voids if he doesn't make the team.
Where did you see 2.5?
I think it was like circa.
I saw a half. 2.5
I
is
think
a
half
lot.
is including an under if he doesn't make the team.
Okay. Well, let me say
Or
this.
he like gets cut and makes another team. I don't know how he gets cut by Jacksonville and gets picked up by somebody else.
If he makes the team, then Urban Meyer will 1,000% justify his making the team by getting him a touchdown.
I mean, that dude's going to be the
1000%.
quarterback. It's going to be like the CFL where you have a quarterback sneak quarterback.
True. Okay, back to the comeback player of the year. Dak Prescott plus 175. To me, that is a really, I mean, compared to Joe Burrow, like that is a really big disparity in my opinion. I know that it's like the Cowboys versus the Bengals, and that's probably where this is, but I like Joe Burrow at 6-1 for comeback player of the year.
Yeah, I think if Joe Burrow shows any sort of life this year, he's getting some. And there's also the difference. Prescott a 4th-round pick, Burrow a first overall pick. Everybody likes to justify. The only thing I'm worried about is Barkley and McCaffrey are both running backs, and some of these voters are pushing back against the running back thing. If the Giants have a good season, if the Giants have a good season, I see Barkley in the same light as Fournette for the Jags in 17, where everybody's like, look, he was not on the team last year. He was hurt the whole year last year. Now he's on the team. He rushed for 1,100 yards at 3.9 a tote, but he had 17 touchdowns. And now he's the comeback player of the year. McCaffrey, I can't see other than if he just puts up 1,000 yards on both sides of the ball, and then if he has a season similar to 19, they might just give it to him for pure stats. But that team's not going to be notable this year. Yeah,
I mean the tough thing for Christian McCaffrey is he's got two roles that he's playing. He's playing running back for the Panthers, and he's playing boyfriend for Olivia Culpo, and that's a lot to juggle, man.
Yeah.
So I'm a little nervous there. Nick Bosa 7-1 is interesting because the Niners will be in primetime a lot. And he racks up some sacks. No one wants to give it to a defensive, edge rusher more than the NFL does. But it's weird to me.
Stafford also 39 sacks taken last year, 40 the last year he played a whole season.
Stop.
Now in that division.
Stop.
Going to take some sacks.
I guess
going to come from Bosa.
What's
probably.
tough for me is I could see Dak Prescott being in the MVP race, almost more so than I see him being this big of a favorite to become that player.
I mean, it's better to bet him long shot to win MVP, I would say, than because 175, it's not going to be enough to justify betting enough to make it worthwhile at 175 odds.
Okay. We've really gone off the rails here. That's okay.
It's okay.
Do you want to talk at all about any of these player totals, season-long totals? So we have there's Zach Wilson and Trevor Lawrence. You get the Tim Tebow. So Tim Tebow's 12.5. I see it on DraftKings over half a touchdown. I'm assuming.
This doesn't void if he doesn't make the team.
He doesn't make the team.
I mean, look, if you're looking at a proxy for him making the team being under 0.5, it's minus 305. So the market doesn't like him making the team.
Right.
The place where I think it was Circa or maybe it was Westgate, which was if he makes the team. If he makes the team, they're doing all these play action dumps to him in the end zone, right?
If they
get inside the 5.
So if I had to bet this prop right now, and I wouldn't put a whole ton on it, and you probably can't, but there was so much. Remember when it was first reported that Meyer was interested in him, and how long it took for them to sign him? That was, in my opinion, a vetting of if we sign this guy, we really better be right.
Yeah.
And I think he makes the team. To me, you don't go through all this shit without the hope that he makes the team.
He would be the player with the biggest gap between playing games since the merger. 9 years. It would be amazing.
I think it's ridiculous that they signed him, but that ridiculousness will continue when he makes the team.
Yeah. Two of the odds here that I'm just just pretty happy our fantasy rankings got right. So Lawrence, 4150.5 is his prop. We have Lawrence, if you look at PFF.com, fantasy projections, we have him with 4,073 passing yards, so under would be advisable there, but not by much. Wilson is at 3850.5. We have Wilson more 3943.9. Just being transparent, Wilson looks better in our numbers than Lawrence does in many ways. But after you adjust for the small difference in draft position, you do get a little bit of a better projection. But I'm bullish on Wilson. So I would when the limits become higher here, I probably will end up being a little bit bullish on Wilson. Last year I was under on Burrow. Probably would not have hit had he not got hurt, right? That's really the risk here. I think the risk with these two guys is legitimately that their offenses aren't very good, more so than it was with the Bengals.
Yes. And you've got the narrative of you run the ball with the rookie quarterback.
You have to.
And I see you look at the Jets and you go, okay, they brought in that great offense, but yeah, that great offense also didn't let Jimmy G throw. Now, say whatever you want about that, but you want attempts. That's what you need. So
Burrow they were behind so much that he's pumping it 60 times a game.
Right.
And so he was going to get over that total by hook or by crook. Here, look, the one thing you can say about Lawrence is that he plays in a bad division defensively. But one of those bad defenses is his own, right? So
True.
you get Tennessee and Houston, which are 4 games against Patsies defensively. Zach Wilson, not so much against New England, the Miami Dolphins, or the Buffalo Bills.
Okay, let's move on to a little college.
Ooh.
So here's how I think we should do this. First
very
off,
quickly in your mind.
Yes, very quickly. Especially because Phil now holds a 2-shot lead, and my 3-1. My 3-1 bet looking really nice.
You gotta get out of here so you can watch it at home. Yeah.
Well, also the Lakers just tipped. We got a lot going on here.
Yeah.
It's actually
I lost a pretty big bet on
it's a
Sky
sneaky, wonderful
earlier.
time of year.
Yeah, it's great.
We will get right into the college football odds and Heisman odds here in a second. But first, if you just listen to the Julio Jones talk and you're thinking about, well, I wish I could, fade the Falcons or buy into the Falcons or this team or that team, you can, because there is a stock market for sports teams. It's Symbol, SIMBULL, and we've partnered with them to give you a pretty sweet deal. Use promo code PFF when you deposit $10 at Symbol. You can do so at symbol.app/PFF. When you use that promo code, you will get a free PFF annual subscription. It's usually $40. You get it with just a $10 deposit at Symbol. It's the easiest thing. It's one of the best deals I've seen out there. You may want to bet on some, kind of futures, but this is a nice way to not have to tie your money up for all of that time and actually just buy stock in teams. You get paid a dividend when they win games. You can obviously trade for different shares as you go. So go check it out at Symbol, SIMBULL.app/PFF. And now, my favorite, college football. I want to talk Heisman Trophy, and I think we save that for the end of this conversation. You are going to write a piece this week, probably in concert with Ben Brown, right, about some of the lines are up for some of the big games. We're going to talk about our power ratings for college players and some of the futures that we like. But I'd like you to tease that up here with some of the things that our simulation, because we have a college simulation and a pro simulation, obviously building off of the grades that we have for college. And to me, there's the gap between information from NFL to college is dramatic. So a lot can be learned here. I'm going to learn. Teach me.
Okay, here are some conference futures. Right now, Power 5 conferences are on DraftKings and other places. Here are some that I like. And again, you can get, the listeners want to come after us. Ohio State's currently minus
Our
one.
listeners love us, okay?
Yeah.
Just stop having such a hate relationship with listeners.
I
love you guys.
Yeah, me too. But here, Ohio State is minus 125 to win the Big Ten. I actually think, again, continuity is important in college football, not having the same quarterback year to year. I agree with them being the favorite, but I think the best bet out of the Big Ten is Iowa 11-1. Iowa last season got off to a horrible start at 0-2, and people forgot that they won 6 straight games down the stretch.
I did forget that.
They were a top 10 graded team in the Power 5 in our metrics. They return. They returned some pretty good players here. Another bet that I like is out of the ACC. Right now, Clemson is minus 835. You have Dabo Swinney, you have DJ Alungile playing quarterback. Sam Howell is a top 5 pick next year. North Carolina is 7-1. Mac Brown has done a very good job there. I think that is a value in that one. And then lastly, this is some place where you're getting a better number at DraftKings than you're getting somewhere like BetOnline. For the exact same reason that I like North Carolina, I like USC here. Keaton Slovis coming back, 4-1 to win the Pac-12. The two favorites there, Oregon and Washington, are both plus 275. I understand why they are, but quarterback play wins out in many cases. So I like Slovis there. Those are the three bets I like for conferences. Let's talk about the Heisman though.
Yeah, let's do it. So, by the way, I like all of those ones. I am here to learn about college football. For anyone that's new to this podcast, let me explain how this works. I will watch college football games where quarterback play is good enough that it may someday end up in the NFL.
It might matter to you in April.
Yes.
Yeah.
Other than that, please God spare me. That said, that's why we have simulations. That's why we have all of the data to leverage so that we can bet anything that we want.
Yep. And there are games that are posted up there. Be careful, by the way, be careful about home field advantage, because some of the games of the year are in neutral sites, and whatever you give home field advantage as, you might see a number as a value when it's really not. So,
the Heisman on DraftKings Sportsbook. Spencer Rattler, Oklahoma quarterback, plus 550. DJ Uiagalelei, quarterback, Clemson, 6-1. Bryce Young, quarterback, Alabama, 8-1. And then, so let's start. Those are the only odds. Those are the three favorites. Do any of those entice you?
No.
Why not?
You're not getting a big enough payout, right? So like Jalen Waddle, or no, not Jalen Waddle. See, I don't even. Jalen Waddle had to get hurt for Devontae Smith to have the opportunity to win the Heisman last year. Kyler Murray came out of nowhere, right? Like there was that betting, the documentary called Action that was on Showtime, where in freaking November, one of the professional bettors was saying, Tua's not a bet, Tua's a lock. And then Tua never won a Heisman, right? Burrow came out of nowhere the year he won. Like, none of those are going to make you happy, right? Here are some that I think have a shot.
Well, let's continue on.
Okay.
So next we have JT Daniels, 12-1. JT Daniels, formerly at USC, transferred.
Now Georgia
quarterback.
Yep.
You then have CJ Stroud, who's taking over at quarterback for the Ohio State, 19-year-old kid. And you have Sam Howell, presumptive top 5 pick next year, quarterback for North Carolina. So JT Daniels, 12-1. So is CJ Stroud. Sam Howell, 17-1. Any of those get you excited?
I would possibly sprinkle on Sam Howell there at 17-1.
Really?
Yeah, I think he's a good player. They're losing receivers though. The thing about the thing about North Carolina that you have to be worried about is some of the weapons are going away. So that is a problem with that. If you believe in the power of quarterbacks though, he might be one to think about.
I am fading Sam Howell. Sam Howell is my fade this year. I don't know if it's the Mitch Trubisky at North Carolina thing.
Well, Mitch would be entering his first year as a starter if he was Sam Howell. So that's maybe the difference.
Okay, let's keep it going here. Matt Corral, Ole Miss, quarterback. De'Aaron King, Miami, quarterback. Both 20-1. Bijan Robinson, also 20-1. And Keaton Slovis, 25-1. Now, this is my favorite bet, is Keaton Slovis, 25-1.
Okay.
You mentioned how you like them in the Pac-12. I do as well. USC, a storied franchise that people are itching to get back into the limelight. There are a lot of talent evaluators that really like Slovis as a guy who could potentially threaten that number 1 pick. Obviously, tons of weapons at USC. If they are good, he is going to get a lot of publicity. 25-1 is the type of odds that I want to lay, as opposed to some of these like 8-1, 6-1. Even though if I had to bet one of the favorites, you know my love for DJ Uiagalelei.
Yeah. Here's the one out of that group. I called him Matt Golden Corral.
Oh.
Last season for Ole Miss, 29 touchdowns, 10 yards a pass attempt, 506 yards on the ground. He was a guy that was playing other positions in often early on. He will play an SEC play. Like, he will be on TV a fair amount. And he is electric. And
I really thought you were about to go in on Bijan Robinson, running back Texas, as your play. Because
in the pantheon of things, I'd rather take a second-tier team from the SEC than a second-tier team player from a second-tier team in the Big 12. Like I that's kind of where my worldview is, which is probably what's gonna. If we go through these next, let's get all the way to Emory Jones here, because I think Emory Jones is the guy we tweet about all the time.
Yeah, that's the guy I'm
40
excited
to 1.
about.
He's
So Emory Jones, quarterback,
Yeah.
Florida. Talk to me.
I mean, he's just like, when you look at, let's just put it this way. Whatever you think about Kyle Trask, if it's more negative than consensus, you better bet into Emory Jones, because Kyle Trask put up some pretty good fucking numbers last year. And that offense was very, very good. Now they lose Kadarius Toney, they lose Kyle Pitts. But they move the football. They are scary offensively, and I don't believe that Kyle Trask was the reason for that. I think Kyle Trask was riding the
Kyle
bus.
Pitts? Yeah.
So Emory Jones, he's got some
40 to 1.
experience later on in the season. 40 to 1. I think relative to price, Jaden Daniels of Arizona State, 33 to 1. Again, Pac-12, kind of a lower tier Power 5. Not a huge fan. Desmond Ridder plays over here.
Again,
like, he's not winning the Heisman. Breece Hall's running back for Iowa State. Could have a chance.
Ain't gonna happen.
We're lower on Iowa State than the rest of the marketplace. Brock Purdy has gotten worse every single year he's played at Iowa State. If he doesn't improve, they're not getting better. And if they don't win the Big 12, Breece Hall is not winning the Heisman. So I think Emory Jones at 40 to 1 among those longer shots might be the one you want to look at.
Emory Jones has less than 100 career dropbacks. However, the dude is a scary athlete. Over 90 PFF grade rushing the football. So you think about what wins the Heisman. And the reason Spencer Rattler is the number one guy here is he's going to have a ton of highlight plays. Okay, so if he has those and all of the stats, it's going to be tough to beat. However, you look at a guy like Emory Jones, to me, that's a similar thing. He plays for a very high-profile team. He's going to have a ton of highlight reel plays. And if he puts that together with a really successful season, that's one. So my two favorites are Keaton Slovis, 25 to 1, and your boy Emory Jones at 40 to 1. If I had to bet a favorite here, I'm just going with the Uiagalelei. 6 to 1 is ridiculous.
Well, plus the ACC is not very good.
6 to 1 is so bad. When I saw that was 6 to 1, I was like, "Are you fucking kidding me?"
Yeah. The ACC is a very top-heavy conference, as evidenced by the fact that Clemson's, minus 835 to win it all, and so that might be an easy schedule with some great statistics. But Trevor Lawrence never won a Heisman, and I think in because of that, possibly, right, where they're not playing in that think about you and I, to the point of your college football fandom, when you watch great conference championship games, they're almost always Georgia, Alabama, Florida, Alabama, LSU, Georgia, etc. It's never fucking Clemson, Pittsburgh. It's never one of these so the hard part about betting a Clemson player for the Heisman, and Watson won it, I believe, one year. I can't remember actually, but
he did not win the Heisman.
But that's the whole point. They're the class of that conference so much that there's never games. I can remember when it was Lamar Jackson versus Deshaun Watson way back in the day, 2016. That was the last high profile ACC game I remember. And so if you don't have those, if you don't shine in those situations, you're probably not going to win a Heisman.
He probably should have, though.
But no, we're not saying should, though. That's the whole issue.
Right.
We're
I'm just correcting that. Yes, I agree. I'm not going to bet Uiagalelei. I'm telling you that I love Uiagalelei, and you know that if you've followed this podcast. And I'm going to continue to root for him. I'll bet on him this year. How about that?
I still can't forget turbulent week, right? Notre Dame, Clemson.
Yeah.
Clemson
Travis
minus
Etienne
5.
getting run into a brick wall on every
and
play.
us still covering the game, getting interrupted for the rally, right? God. Because that was election, and then was that whole night was crazy, right? Because our guy Steve finally got to sleep that day. Kornacki.
It's true. All right, recommendation time.
Okay.
What are your recommendations?
Are you going first,
people?
or you want me to go first?
I'll let you go first. By the way, this is a new segment, and I wanted to say this. I've been trying to implement Aaron Nagler's recommendation. If you didn't listen to the last episode with Aaron Nagler, it was very, very good. He talks a lot about the Aaron Rodgers stuff. You can feel how you want to feel about him and the Packers, but he gives some real insight into that situation and gave a great recommendation. So I've been trying to put that into my routine. I found it very useful so far.
So you wake up in the morning, close your eyes, and say, "I thank God for Eric."
The point of a tease is so that people go listen to the other podcasts.
Well, I don't think I gave enough of it away.
Okay.
I think I just.
But
made
yes, I do wake up in the morning and say thank God for Eric. That's been a constant in my life.
Same, by the way. Okay, so here's a movie. It was one of the rare movies that I saw during the pandemic that came out during the pandemic. Remember how like there was like this this big chasm of nothing coming out?
I don't, because I don't really watch a lot of movies.
But it's on Hulu. I remember watching it the first time. It was Palm Springs. Mm-hmm. It has Andy Samberg, the guy from Saturday Night Live, who's like hilarious. And I remember watching it and thinking, oh, this was really cute. This was really good. Mm-hmm. And then I remember watching it the other day, like rewatching it and realizing that it actually was a lot deeper and a lot even better. And why? Because when I first watched it, I wondered why it was nominated for things. Watch it again. You're like, okay, I can see why. It's a very good movie. And it's, an hour and a half, not a huge investment of your time.
You're 2 for 2 on movies now.
I am. Well, because it takes me forever to read books now. I used to be able to read like 3 books a week, but now I got kids and I get this job and I got my wife, and it's like I can read like a book I read like 6 books at a time, and they all take me like 2 months to read. So like one recommendation station, I'm just going to rattle off like 6 books. But for now, I haven't finished one in a while.
Actually, so I have a recommendation here. I'm going to give you 2, because what you just mentioned is a tricky thing. And I have been using, have you heard of Blinkist?
Yes.
So I forget how much it is per year, which tells you something about a product if I can't even name how much it is, right? Yeah. And I use it. And what it does is it condenses, books into like 15 to 20 minutes.
Yes.
And so what I do is I listen to one. You can read them as well if you want to read them. But what I do is right before I'm going to bed, about 20 minutes, I start one, and I listen to it as I like brush my teeth and wash my face and make sure everything's ready to go before I go to bed. And I like that quite a bit because it makes me feel like I'm continuing to learn things even if it's a really hectic day and I don't have a chance to do anything else. But here's my recommendation. It's summer, okay? People trying to get in shape. People can go out now. And I'm going to help you guys out. So you should probably be taking a protein supplement.
Oh my God. God dang it. We're going to turn this into ad copy.
No, I'm only saying this because I use it. And look, I know if you're trying to like decide what to buy in the fitness space, may God help you.
Yeah,
it's a fucking shit show, right?
May God have mercy on your soul.
Everyone has good marketing. Everyone tells you their shit's great. But there's a ton of like protein powder supplements that are garbage for you. And I have used a couple over the years. I've been trying to find one that I really, really like. But I'm going to give you a brand. It's called ProMix, Promix. And I actually switched over to the vegan pea protein because it's easier for me to digest.
Sure.
I mean, I've been a whey guy my whole life. But they have whey and pea proteins. They're both fantastic. I'm actually going to tell you what the nutritional facts say. 2 scoops, which is the serving size, 115 calories, no fat, no cholesterol, 10 milligrams sodium, 2 grams carbohydrates, no sugar, 25 grams protein.
Wow.
The ingredients are for the pea protein, organic Canadian yellow pea protein isolate and vitamin B12. It's soy, gluten, and dairy free. It's about as clean a protein as you will possibly find out there. And it actually, people will take pea protein and be like, this kind of tastes a little chalky. It's actually not bad at all. If you want a little secret here, you buy the chocolate and then you mix a little peanut butter powder.
Does that stop it being vegan though?
Well, I don't do that.
You're not a.
I don't do that.
Yeah.
I'm saying if you are weaker,
I see,
you can do
I
that.
see.
Okay, you can wean yourself onto it. Okay, you just throw a couple ice cubes, some water, you shake it up, you'll be good to go. But that's my recommendation for all you people out there. I'm trying to diversify. I'm trying to give you guys some legit recommendations.
I feel like
this is one.
I feel like that's got to be tough when you're in as good a shape because you have to. I mean, I can imagine trying to keep things new is probably because you're a very routine guy,
driven person. Yeah.
Yes. But trying new things has got to be scary for you because what you do works, so
right. I don't make changes to things unless I feel really confident.
Yeah.
So I did. Anyways, I also redid my routine just a couple weeks ago.
I know that you go to bed earlier.
It's my annual summer. I take a piece of my routine and I
See, that's I was always very routine, regimented, all that kind of stuff, and then like
kids.
And then I had kids, yeah. And also like, you know, in college and stuff, I had like a few girlfriends who were like, Eric, like you are going to twist yourself into a pretzel if you can't, diversify your life a little. So like I was weaning off of being routine driven for a while, and then we had kids when I was in my mid-20s. I envy, you know, your stick-to-itiveness, yes.
To be routine
but I feel like I don't allow myself to put routines into my life as frequently because I'm the kind of person who, if I became religious about it, I would just resent my kids because they would like constantly screw up my routine. And so I refuse to do that. But I do think when they get older and go to school or something, I will go to college. I will join back to the class.
Well, I'll be ready to give you recommendations on that. You know what I'll do? I've got a ton of recommendations on this routine change. I'm going to save it for next episode. I've got a bunch of stuff for you. It'll be fun. It'll be on Wednesday night, so you'll want to check it out. Make sure you subscribe, like, comment, all of those things. We appreciate all of you, and we will talk to you all on Wednesday. Peace out.